with Libero Copper CEO Ian Harris. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning. Glad to have you. Okay.
um, yeah, so Libero has got a lot of attention in the last few weeks. Just summarizing some of the news. Well, you did a share consolidation. You did a financing with a lead order from Frank Zustra, a very well-known investor in the mining sector. Um, and then you announced another financing. So I think 3 million, then maybe another 3 million or about 3 million. So suddenly, a bit of influx of capital into the company. Just looking at the financials at the end of last year, the company didn't have much cash. So before we get into some of this recent news and this transformation and why it took place, let's talk a little bit about 2023, like the good, the bad. Like, what did the company do in 2023?
Yeah, 2023 was obviously a pretty difficult period for the company. And I'll try and give the super high level highlights, right? Um, and start with a mentality. And the mentality is knowing the quality of asset that Mocoa is, right? It's one of the very few large scale undeveloped copper deposits in the world, and they're just not common. They're not easy to find. And it has a potential to grow much, much bigger. So geologically, it's already a significant deposit and has a potential to continue to grow. And so it's really a gem. And then there's a big backdrop of everybody, I think most people understand the expected huge increase in the requirement for copper. So it's really more of a question of when, not if. And so it makes it difficult when you're facing short-term dilemmas when you have the overall long-term backdrop. But I guess my perspective is always understanding the true value that Mocoa can hold and unlocking that value. So looking back last year, it was, we have a new president in Colombia, a lot of uncertainty around that. First leftist president in 30 years. Lots going on. You have a deteriorating market. Lots of things that we were trying to and to be take on personal criticism, right? We we were reacting slower than the forces were happening, right? So we had a strategy. It was working well to become a part of the national planning of the country, but then the country kind of deteriorated somewhat with the president focusing on political issues, right? Like reducing favorability, less popular, having difficulty passing laws through Congress, and then the multiple scandals. So all that work on a federal level kind of fell apart because everything became a political focus. And obviously having issues with deteriorating market, and then obviously trying to make rapid reductions as quickly as possible to try and conserve cash, right? And there were some dark periods there. It was very difficult and a lot of difficult decisions, but through it, there were some real highlights, right? And personally, and that was the dedication and the belief of the local community and even some of the employees that we even had to let go of the importance of the project and the quality of of the company, and that this would be a short-term thing and this would be something we'd get through. So that was kind of the backdrop of 2023, ending the year trying to basically, whatever you do, don't lose the asset. Make sure this is an asset that's worth um, a considerable amount in moving forward into the future, and really about keeping the lights on. So that's really where we left at the end of 2023, and that was the major focus.
So you divested big bulk to Dolly Varden. I think that was a. I mean, it clearly became a non-core asset for Libero. I mean, I know you guys had that asset since. I mean, since I became a shareholder, I know, at
Yep.
least since 2020. But it just made less and less sense for a Colombia focused company to be doing a summer drill program up in the far north of Canada, right? So I mean that made sense that you divested that, and I think Dolly Varden got a pretty good deal on that, and that ties in well with their company. And then you got rid of the Esperanza project, which at one point seemed quite promising, but I guess you met some opposition there in terms of that of getting that drill permit. So the sole focus became Mocoa, and really, uh, in my mind, that has been the sole focus of the company since 2022. Those other projects were there in the deck, but Mocoa was the prize, and it is the prize, and as you said, um, it's potentially worth considerably more than the market has ever valued it at. So let's get into this transformation here in 2024. So uh, just to be blunt, the company is running on fumes in the final weeks of 2023. How does this um, deal come together? How does the share rollback and the investment by Frank Zustra come together? And what is his interest here?
Okay, so first I'm going to re obviously big bulk. It's a nice asset, but this market and this is a kind of a this market is not rewarding even some good drill results, right? So, there have been a few stars, and there were some really nice stars at the end of 2023 that had a little bit of optimism. And I still think that there's the sparks coming back into the market, but it's not truly rewarding, decent drill results. And the other one is in Argentina, which, I mean, that permit is coming out, right? It is happening. So it was actually one of the most difficult decisions, but unfortunately, it was a option agreement that was made in 2021, where we kind of had a warm spell in the market, and it just was not. And it was based on understanding that a drill permit would be imminent, and obviously it didn't happen. And although the team did an amazing job, and that all the work done will, unfortunately for Libero, but Latin Metals will probably receive a lot of that, all that work that was done. But it was a very difficult decision, but I think it was the right decision because in this market, Mocoa is a real asset. It has a resource. It's already, more advanced. Esperanza had that potential of getting some excitement, but it had to be proven, right? It had to be drilled. It had to be done. Where Mocoa is a significant asset. And so during that entire process, obviously, we're talking to an enormous amount of different players, right? Multiple conversations trying to work something out. And I think obviously we weren't in the strongest negotiating spot. Everybody, I think there's still a lot of belief in copper, but everybody said, okay, well, we'll just wait and see, and what's going to happen. And then this deal obviously came together very quickly, right? And I can't honestly not say a lot about it because it came together so quickly. But I think there's some macro backdrops going back. First is you do see some larger funds getting into metal investment. There's some geopolitical things happening where people are trying to pull the trigger and know and get in front of securing copper supply chains, and there's some people that know it even better than I do. So I think that a lot of things just started clicking all at the same time, where these types of assets are going to start to shine. And Mocoa really is, a significant existing resource. Um, I can only say this from inference. I can't say this because I've been told from the horse's mouth. But um, Mr. Juster obviously has a presence in Colombia. He's a significant shareholder of Aris, which is probably the largest gold producer in Colombia. He has a team here. He has a network here, and understands what was happening in Colombia itself, right? Where if anybody who's been following the company for a long time knows about my personal history of in Ecuador and the ability to get one of the first to get the first industrial scale project, and also copper in Ecuador, and the adventure that was, and the lessons learned from Ecuador, the importance and the strength that can be built by having a very local focus. So even in the previous years, we spent a lot of time building true relationships locally. And so my largest goal as CEO for the Mocoa Project, in a very moving soup politically in Colombia, there's a lot of things going on, and that requires strength, is to be able to demonstrate and create what I call that shield. So it's not only about having strong local support, but also being able to demonstrate it. Right? It kind of keeps everybody out of bay and not become a political lightning rod. Right? Because Mocoa, let's be fair, even on a small scale, will probably be the biggest metal project in Colombia. There are some significantly big coal mines in the country, but for some reason, they're viewed differently, right? Mocoa easily would be 10 times bigger than the largest gold mine that exists today in Colombia. So it's a big project, and is to be able to create that environment where the project is sustainable over long term. And something happened last year, which I didn't mention, was there was elections, and there was a big shift locally and in the province, in the department, where there was a significant shift towards pro-development, job creation. We even had multiple candidates, including the current governor, who was directly supportive of the project, saying these are the type of things that we need for our province. And then locally in Mocoa, we had the three top candidates were all pro-development candidates, right? So and and that might not sound very much to somebody living in Canada, right? But it's huge for countries in South America, which very rarely does a political platform, especially in a remote province, sit on a pro-development platform. And the first top three candidates for mayor in Mocoa were all on that platform. And so we even saw it almost as a mandate towards the project, right? We saw probably 75% of the votes in Mocoa were for these three top candidates, as really also a mandate towards the project. And it really, it's nice in the conversations we have today when we talk and have discussions of how we're going to work together and the things that we're going to do and the local focus we're going to have, and we're going to focus on developing capacity locally and maximizing job creation, capacity building, business building, supply chain development locally, because the reply back from the mayor or councilman or other people is, yeah, we know it because that's what you did before. So it's not some just a empty promise, but it's based on a demonstratable way of the way we've worked in the past. So that social capital really is what is going to take us across the finish line. So I'm very proud of the work that the team has done. and really believe that it's that work that they did, and that commitment that they had to doing things right is actually going to be what takes the project across the finish line, and gets us restarted. But really, restarting the project is all about being able to clearly demonstrate um, that support for the project, right? That's what's required to make sure it's still going to be a lightning rod, but we don't need it to be a gigantic one, right? That we can demonstrate there's local support for the project. The people want this to move forward, because that is what is required to move the project forward long term.
Okay, so let me see if I can break this down a little bit, because I think people who haven't been to Colombia, certainly this area of Colombia, may not fully understand the situation. So, when I was there in 2022, you have an office in the town there. It's a town of about a population about 100,000 people. You have an office there, and you were employing quite a number of locals working there. And you were also, that was also the year where you drilled the one hole, right? The very deep hole. And that was in the spring of 2022 that you did that. My sense, being on the ground there, and everybody's wearing their, Libero Cobra shirts and hats, making it very clear who they work for. Um, there was support for the project. There was strong support. I did not. We ate at local restaurants, talked to local people. I did not see a single person who voiced any opposition at all. Now, maybe I just, didn't meet those people, or maybe there's just not many of them. But my impression was very, very strong support. And obviously, I was just there for a few days. But then I look at the location of the project. We hiked out to a little village, which is still pretty far away from the deposit. Um, Everybody in this little village was 100% in support of the project. Um, and just looking at the deposit, I mean, we didn't hike up 2,000 meters or something to actually get up there, but um, it's in the middle of nowhere, literally, right? There's no infrastructure, there's no people out there. Okay, it's not a place where people live, right? It's definitely, at least a 5-hour hike from the town. There's no roads either, right? So, but my sense was letting, Libero drill and do some exploration work in this area is a no-brainer, because it's going to bring jobs. It's going to bring capital into this area, as it did. You hired quite a lot of people in 2022. Can you talk at all about the opposition that you ran into and where that opposition came from? Who were the people who said, we don't want you here?
So thanks, because you're right. Because I'm intimate with the project, sometimes I forget some people don't they can't picture what it's like. So I appreciate that backdrop. And so the project is only 10 kilometers from the town of Mocoa. The town of Mocoa is about 50,000 people. There's about 100,000 people in the entire municipality. And the closest township is called Montclar, where we actually have a development agreement together with them. We call it a co-development agreement, where we sit with them monthly and we try to co-plan, and it's been very, very exciting to see how that works. Right? I mean, just even little things, but they feel they understand and they're part of the project. Very similar to an exploration agreement or a co-development agreement, or that would be with perhaps some of the First Nations in Canada, without a price tag, which is the nice part, right? We just it's a spirit of how we work together. And then it is 1,000-meter climb up to the top of the deposit. We built a road all the way up there. That's a path that can be by man and mule, and that's on purpose because we use man portable drills, and so that means we can supply those drills. And even if you have to hike up carrying materials and supplies on donkeys and mules, and people, it's still way less expensive than a helicopter, right? So again, we focused heavily on involving people, that it's not just false promises, but to see those real results. Like I don't know if we got the chance to see the guy who was making the steel toe boots for the wheat workers, right? The first steel toe boots produced in all of Putumayo, right?
We met him, and he tried to make me a pair, but my feet are just too big, Ian.
But those are the demonstrate or the the girl the women who make the uniforms and all these things, who by the way now are they're in a program with the IFC, right, demonstrating women's businesses. So and they're coming literally the next stop. They've been in Bogota for a few times, and now they're actually going to go all the way down to Mocoa and Putumayo as one of the program to demonstrate of something that's been successful in developing women's businesses. But I'm getting off track. The question is, there was opposition, and mostly it came from the mayor. And the other place it comes from is, you know, NGOs are businesses, right? They're businesses. Then their business is to get people to give them money, right? It's the job of many people, so they look and try and find ways to create work. And when you're in a remote location like Mocoa, they can come in, they can bust people in, and they say they represent the people. They represent in the pueblo that doesn't want this project. You have a mayor that's not supportive of the project. I think he kind of backed himself in his corner. It was his position 4 years ago. And even seeing all the good work, I think he just couldn't get out of his original position. I don't know what the issue was there, um, etc. They can make it look like a community is against a project. And that then brings in national politics, right? Maybe not all of Congress, but one or two Congress members who want to make a name for themselves. And they say, this is the place where I can stick my stick in the ground and I can demonstrate and I can get my face time and get in front of the cameras, and it's my excuse, right? So that was the issue, right? And so what we're working on now is I think what you felt was real. I think we have a large majority of the population wants to see this project move forward. They understand it. We've worked together. They know the impact it can have in an area where it's in the middle of nowhere, right? And but it's being able to create that face. So you have a new mayor now coming in. He's still getting his legs, etc. But working on creating that overall defense is a terrible word, but it's to be able to create a face that says, no, here in Mocoa, we want this project to move forward. We're working together with the company, and we wanted to see it working so we can evaluate it in the future as a future project, right? It's in the exploration phase. So that is the work we're doing right now, and it's going really well, and very excited about the work that's going on. But that is the overall goal. And once that we have that, we will be restarting the project. And I think that we're going to get there very soon to have a clear, demonstrable, vocal support, demonstratable support for the project, because I call it the shield. And that's what you need. Because if we went out and started doing something right now, the chances and the risks for the project are too great. And I understand the value that the project has, and that's always something that's held very high in my mind. Right, it's always top of mind. Is the value of this project, you will get there. Whatever you do, don't take too many risks. Because at the end of the day, these are projects that take 20 years or more to see them. I think Mocoa is way more advanced than that, but it's always takes time, and you want to avoid the obstacles. And the one thing that also incentivized me is looking at what happened in Cobre Panama. And as a guy who's worked 15 years of his 25 years in South America, that problem was totally avoidable,
Mm.
right? But because people build an, I don't want to, well, avoid the word,
Mhm.
but arrogance, right? We've got a big project. It's too important for the country. We can do whatever we want. Panama's 3 million people. If you cannot win over 3 million people to demonstrate and be properly demonstrate the value that this project has for the country, how could you lose that? Right? I mean, just to do and doing things the right way, that project should never have been in the position that it is today. Right. And so that was a reminder that the way we're doing things, I think, is the right way to do it.
Mhm. So I heard you say something that potentially quite important there. Um, that you think there's going to be some significant progress made on the ground there, and you're going to create this quote unquote shield to be able to restart operations. Are you going to just leave it at that in this conversation? There's no further details that you can offer as to that. It's something that's sort of maybe still pending, or a vote, or what's going on there.
Well, I am obviously holding my cards close to my chest, but I can say we're working on a concrete, definitive um, uh, piece of work to be able to demonstrate that. So it's not intangible. It's a tangible thing that we're working towards. That is, I think, is critical
Mm-hmm.
to be able to demonstrate the support for the project locally.
Got it. And will that be announced to the market once it's ready?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah. So you were talking about the project, and I do want to spend actually a little time talking about the project, and then we can call it a day, and I'll let you catch your flight. Mocoa. So this was drilled by B2 Gold around 2008, 2009. They put a resource on it. It's inferred. So that not even a lot of holes into this thing. I mean, I think B2 drilled like a dozen holes in 2009 or 2008, and they put a resource on it. These are big intercepts. We're talking about 800 to 1200-meter intercepts, because this is a copper moly porphyry in the Andean copper belt, that area of South America on the west coast that goes up the coast where there's all those nice porphyry deposits. Mocoa is the one in Colombia, the southern part of it. And the inferred resource is, let me pull it up, 0.45% copper equivalent grade. That's 0.33% copper and about 0.04% moly. And using a $3 copper price, which is pretty conservative, you get about 5 billion pounds of copper, okay, in an inferred resource. But this is, just looking at some of the cross sections, and it's not hard. It wouldn't be hard for an operator to put this up to a measured and inferred. It wouldn't take that much drilling. And in fact, in 2022, Libero drilled a 1,200-meter hole right across the heart of the deposit, extending a zone down dip in a part of the deposit, and also filling in a couple of blank areas in the resource. And it was a hell of an intercept. 1,229 meters, grading 0.5%, 0.58% copper equivalent, including a 251 meters of 1.12%. That was 0.74% copper and 0.114% moly. So the moly component of this deposit is quite significant. There's a lot of moly here, and some of those copper grades really stand out. I mean, I've been studying porphyry deposits the last few months, and grades of 0.7, 0.8% copper these days are absolutely exceptional when you're able to drill them over 200-meter widths. So, Mocoa really is quite a prize, and I think there's a lot of room to grow this deposit as well. And I think that probably is something to do with why Frank Zustra took a look at this and decided to take a position, and why you've been working so hard, Ian, to make this work, to be able to create a win-win for Libero shareholders and for local stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, so first, it is an inferred resource, but the majority of drilling is along a single ridge line, right? And there's enough drilling, and there's really a core component of the deposit that I think last time we ran it is about a 1% copper equivalent. Even on the old prices that were used, and the Molly component, which I think we used a $10 Molly price, right? I don't know where Molly is today. I haven't checked recently, but in recent times it's between the 20 and 25 over an extended period of time now. Makes a massive difference. I think Molly is about in the resource about 20% of the value of the deposit, but at today's prices, it's about 40. Like it's one of the world's largest undeveloped moly deposits. It's got higher moly grades than some moly deposits, right? um, and that's reported in moly. Most other deposits report it as moly sulfide, right? Because it makes, so the numbers don't get too many decimal points on it. Um, but it is a deposit that, remember, my experience came from Ecuador, where we're in the same Jurassic belt. That same Jurassic belt is Fruta del Norte, Mirador Norte, Pananza, San Carlos, and Marinza. And to the north, it hasn't been explored, right? Because it's more difficult to get into that territory. But it has very prolific porphyries. And so this project is open in all directions. We've done the geocam. We see the overall demagnetized footprints of this thing. And it really, I think, is just in its infancy and has a large potential. It's a big deposit, can be continue to grow. And I think that is a big part of the attraction, right? We had many geologists going through the data room and multiple conversations with many different groups. And I think, again, I'm inferring, I haven't heard this from the horse's mouth, right? That there's very few of this quality type projects that exist in the world, right? And it has the potential to become much bigger, in a backdrop where the world needs more copper. And again, they want big projects, right? Because they're going to need. We can't construct 300 copper mines, right? We're going to have to build some big copper mines, right, to feed the thirst as we transition and decarbonize the world's economies. So I think from that perspective, it's already a big deposit, but it's really only one ridge line that's been drilled. We've already identified 8 additional potential porphyry centers within the very close area. It's open. We have a lot of drilling to do. This is a project that deserves, having 6 drilling on it constantly. And I think we're building a project that is going to get to the point where that can be done, right? That you can develop it and look at it properly. I'm a mining engineer. I like working on projects that become future mines, right? That's the type of project I want to work on. And I don't want to waste my time on something that's just going to produce a couple nice drill holes and then, really has no chance. This one has a chance. It has significant legs to become a future project. And I think that's another little, you touched on another little piece. Even in today's market, in a bad market, right, there's still a couple projects out there that get attention because they are, I call them the class A projects, right? The tier 1 type projects, right? And what Mocoa with a single drill hole demonstrated was, at the time, only on copper, not on a copper equivalent basis, right? One drill hole in our entire project was one of the 10 best drill holes in the world. And the only other drill holes that were better were Filo de Sol and Marinza, right? So it demonstrates that it has the ability to be that type of project that will get attention even in this market. And I think that was another one of the main drivers. This is a project, once it's moved forward, it's guaranteed to create value. It's not maybe or hopefully or we're going to get, it's going to do it because it can. It's there. The deposit is there. It's proven, and it's really more about defining its overall size and scale.
I've got some more questions for you, but I got to hop, and I know you got to catch a flight. I'm just going to leave you with one more question, and we'll just have to do this again in a couple of weeks because there's so much to talk about. Can you give any sort of time frame on when this big announcement may be coming?
Oh, whoa. So that is difficult, right? So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, right?
Okay.
But we are working. It is not an idea. It's something that's in the works. It's going on. It's a question of just going through the steps. Obviously, we are not 100% in control on how fast things move. But it is something we'd like to get done as soon as possible, right? We were actually originally, I think, there was a possibility to get it done by the end of the month, but I don't think we're going to get there now. But I really believe that sometime in March is the time frame. It's a realistic. It's not a guaranteed time frame, which is also the nice part about, we have some we've already reduced significantly, right? We have a very low burn rate now, extremely low burn rate right now as a company.
Hmm.
Um, so we can just kind of grind away at that and not make foolish decisions, getting overly anxious, right? So we will be able to get this across the finish line. It could be any moment, but I believe that sometime in the March time period that we'll be able to get it. We'll be able to make that announcement, but we won't preempt it, right?
Okay.
We're I'm lucky to be in a space where again we've got a good treasury, we've got a very low burn rate, and that we maintain that capital to be able to properly restart. Which by the way, once that happens, we still have a drill sitting up on the top of the hill. We still have that road that can get us up to the top of the hill. Those agreements are still in place with Montclair,
Hmm.
so we could have a fairly quick mobilization to get the project restarted. We
So
still
to
have
be
a pad
clear,
build, etc.
in Colombia, if you have mining titles, which you have over the deposit there, you have mining titles over a portion of the project area, the main project area. You are allowed to drill according to the mining code there. But because of the fact that you want to really do it the right way and have strong support, you do not want to go in and start another program until you have that vocal, strong, support. Is that correct?
That is the easiest explanation. And sometimes people say you're waiting for a permit, and I just don't want to go into the depth of the explanation because it's definitely not just waiting
You
for a
don't
permit.
you don't need a permit. In fact, there's no permit to get. You've got the permit already, right?
That's correct. That
Okay.
is correct. But again, it's hard to explain to people that haven't lived in South America, but it's a project that has enough attention. It's well known enough that, and there's people even inside the government that obviously, I mean, they put it in that they're activists, right? So you really need to say, give them
Yeah,
another target. You don't want
it,
to be the
it's
soft target.
it's amazing when you think about it because the hole you drilled in 2022. This is exactly what happened. You drove the drill crew to a location where they set out from for a 4 to 5 hour hike uphill. So there's no gas burning there. There's no helicopters. They had to hike up this hill. The drill rig was put up there, was dropped down by a chopper, but the crew had to hike up there to do their shift. And nobody's bothering the environment. The animals are all fine, just going about their business. It is the least invasive, most environmentally friendly drill program in the history of the mining sector. And you still got pushback. It's incredible.
We even collect rainwater for the drill water. It
Yeah,
is to that
and you're
level.
doing a lot of. You're also doing a lot of social projects in the
Yeah.
area, including beehives and all kinds of stuff. I mean, but there's no doubt in my mind that Libero Cobre has been a net benefit for the environment than a net negative. Yet people just want to see it the way they see it, with their preconceived ideas, right?
Yeah, just keep in mind that NGOs are a business, so it's not necessarily based on
Yeah, exactly.
pragmatic
It's a business.
environmental approach,
Yeah.
right? And mining, unfortunately, because we've done a terrible job in the past of, and really we're facing the evils of having a low profile, low profile, low profile. It's been easy to change us into the enemy. It's funny when I just go through Netflix, how many times you see a movie where the mining company or the mine or whatever is, or just look at Avatar, right? Like it's just evil, right? And we're not, right. But we have to be able to demonstrate. I think here's a real chance because without mining, there is no decarbonization. It is needed. I think that swing is happening. You see it on the cover of The Economist, et cetera, et cetera. The importance of strategic metals, et cetera, et cetera. So it's in the psyche, and it's a real chance that people's and they'll spend more than 30 seconds, right? And to develop an opinion. And so we just have to keep on doing things the right way. I don't think it's doing things the right way is just because we want to be good people. We have to be this way. This is the way you get projects built, and this is the way you'll get projects built into the future.
Well, I'm cheering for you, Ian. Have a safe flight. Enjoy PDAC. Say hi to people for me, and let's do this again in a couple of weeks.
Great idea. Thank you, sir.
Cheers. Thank you.